Welcome back, Samuel. What do you hear?
Nothing but the rain.
Well, grab your gun and bring in the cat. Wait, what? Anyway, welcome to another Fleetyards episode. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Commander Cockins. Welcome back, everyone. And that reference is from the mini-series. I never got it either. Anyway, today we have a real treat for you all. We're going to be taking a look at a very impressive ship from the Colonial Fleet.
That's right. But before we get started, I want to say excellent uniform, Commander. Glad to see you showed up in uniform. Of course, it's a day off. You know how it is. Captains need a break. So I'm just in my civvies, as they would say. So today we'll be teaching you all about the Mercury-class Battlestar Pegasus. Now, as many of you know, there was a Pegasus in the original Battlestar Galactica way back in 1978, which makes me feel really old. And it, of course, appeared again in this rebooted version in 2004.
And we here at Fleetyards have had the amazing good fortune to acquire the actual 3D models of the Pegasus as used in the 2004 reboot. This is a very fun ship to work with, but a bit difficult to animate since it is so detailed and packed full of more polygons than there are stars in the night sky. So doing animations takes a while, but we'll see what we can get in for this amazing show.
But as usual, Samuel has whipped up some fantastic renders of this ship, both stills of it and it in glorious motion to enhance our episode here today and give you all the best viewing experience possible, complete with shaky, dramatic shots, very similar to what we see in the show. So I hope you guys really enjoy all of the love and attention that he puts into all these things.
Thank you, Stuart. And of course, couldn't be done without your amazing script read. You're not the biggest BSG fan, but you really looked at everything, and I think we worked together to really create a fun experience for all of you guys. So without further delays, let's get into discussing the Pegasus.
So say we all.
So say we all. As mentioned, the Pegasus is a Mercury-class Battlestar, which was a much newer design and more powerful than the Galactica herself, which was an older Jupiter class. For reference, the Jupiter class was the front line of Battlestars in the first Cylon War, with these new Mercury class being launched well after. These immense ships served as frontline ships and command ships.
Several structural changes were incorporated into this newer design style. The ship was massive at 1.79 kilometers in length. So that's 1,790 meters or 5,872 feet from stem to stern. This makes the Pegasus almost one-third larger than the Galactica. Now, this may not sound that drastic, but the length of the two ships does not properly show the differences, really.
That is right. The front view really shows the scale of differences. The Pegasus is drastically larger than the Galactica in terms of height, and quite a bit larger in width. She really is a beast, and we'll get into that mentioned a bit more later.
However, despite this much larger size, the ship has more automated systems, and as we are first introduced to the ship, the Pegasus actually has a crew of 1,753 crewmen, which is actually about half of the Galactica's contingent of personnel at the height of its operation. The Mercury class was designed to house up to 2,500 crew, however, when it was fully manned and not devastated by the Cylons.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later-ish. Despite its larger scale, the Pegasus was in fact far more efficient and compact. Her corridors were smaller and more refined, with the more interesting difference being her CIC. The Galactica's CIC is a large open room with several floors, and likely 2 to 3 dozen personnel needed to operate her at peak efficiency. Compare this to the newer Pegasus CIC with smaller, thin computer monitors, a single level of clean whites, and what looks to be just over a dozen crew need to operate her. Small and efficient consoles flank the room, along with a series of rotating glass wall doors giving access to the main corridor. A wonderfully small and simple and clearly efficient design.
Now, a lot of the room on board is dedicated to automated production facilities, which were able to construct new Vipers to replace any that were lost in combat. In addition to this, Pegasus had flight simulators on board that helped facilitate the training of new Viper pilots. Better to train them in a simulator than let them actually take out a real Viper for the first time, you know what I mean?
Although Galactica, they had to.
Exactly, I was just going to get to that. The Galactica had no such facilities, however, so it also had much larger flight decks than the smaller Galactica, with a total of 4 operational flight decks, 2 on each side of the ship. These flight decks were stacked and were operated with computer-assisted landings, which resulted in faster Viper recovery rates.
And it's worth saying they're, again, rotationally flipped, which I love. It defies the need for a single gravitational plane, which is real sci-fi thoughts there. I love it. Very creative as well. At the time of the Pegasus meeting up with the Galactica, she had 4 fully operational squadrons of Vipers at her disposal. The Vipers weren't only the auxiliary craft on board, however, as she also had a large contingent of Raptors as well.
Each of the flight pods had dedicated Raptor landing bays on the sides as well, which expedited the transfer of both crew and cargo. One bonus thing we can do for you all is actually go to the original 3D models, and we can get as many accurate details as possible. So, take it away, Commander.
The Pegasus has 3 sets of pod-mounted Viper launch tube arrangements. Each zone has both tubes that are in the same gravitational orientation as the main ship, and ones that are basically upside down, although there's no upside down in space, but whatever. This configuration compared to Galactica's tubes allow for a doubling up of launching Vipers, leading to greater efficiency.
Each arrangement of 6 standard tubes and 7 upside down tubes, along with a Raptor launch tube at the right of each set.
And I did not know there was a bonus Raptor launch tube, something you just don't know from the show or couldn't see, so we're proud to bring you all this new information.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what's fun about Fleetyards. So, the middle arrangement has only 11 Viper launch tubes along with the Raptor tube, and the last also has 13. So in total, the Pegasus can launch 37 Vipers and 3 Raptors on each arm, meaning a fully armed and manned Mercury-class Battlestar can launch 74 Vipers and 6 Raptors from its launch tubes while going into battle. Wow, that is some impressive firepower just off the hop.
And you can imagine if they really are out there for battle, they can just have 2 sets of Vipers raring and then another set. I mean, that's 5 of these things. That's amazing. But to put that into context, our hero ship, the Galactica, has 40 tubes on each side. Oh, well, okay, we thought it'd be less, but no. If you look at the Pegasus, she has tubes in 3 distinct zones along the huge arm, whereas Galactica has single-file tubes along almost the entire length of her arm or drive pods in 5 8 Viper configurations. So in fact, both ships can launch about the same amount of support ships this way.
That actually is surprising to me. Looking at the ships, I would assume that the Pegasus could launch a lot more, but wow, interesting. Anyways, these changes over the older style ships class this vessel in a capital warship or carrier role. The Pegasus was the final known ship of this class and was active in the Copernicus Defense Fleet and was assigned to Battlestar Group 62. These Mercury-class ships had 8 sublight engine pods instead of the older class's total of 6, and it had a much more angular look and was completely armored, having no exposed ribbing.
Unlike some older ships like the Galactica, this new design featured side launch bay pods that did not retract when executing FTL jumps. This was a result of newer advancements in jump systems, with the FTL drive on the newer Mercury-class ships being a Celestis-class drive unit. Inside the ship features automated sliding doors, basic computer recognition stations in vital areas, and a networked computer system. Oh, that was the undoing of the whole colonies. But theirs was down, so it was fine.
It was indeed. And we explain that in a minute. So,
yeah.
They are fitted with heavy armament consisting of 34 primary kinetic energy weapons, 30 twin turrets, and 4 fixed twin mounts fitted throughout the hull and flight pods, point defense guns, as well as conventional missiles and nuclear warheads. Gun batteries on the Mercury class were distributed all over the vessel, with the greatest concentration of large turrets being located along the side of the ship, within the valley created by the upper and lower halves of the hull, and along the flight pods. 4 are mounted on the underside of the upper hull on the ship's bow, below which sits 4 non-turreted large guns. These form the main forward batteries.
6 turrets are mounted on each underside of the forward section or head of the ship, grouped in pairs. There are also 3 turrets on the side of each flight pod, with 2 more turrets mounted on the front and back of each flight pod. The turreted guns of the Mercury class have a higher rate of fire than the older style Jupiter class guns when operating in flak mode. Forward weapon batteries of this class can devastate a Cylon base star with a single salvo. It's also armed with large anti-ship KWs or kinetic energy weapons, anti-fighter missile batteries, and, as we said, nuclear warheads.
The Pegasus was nicknamed the Beast, while the smaller, older, and more beat-up Galactica was the Bucket, making the team the Beast in the Bucket. Sounds like a Disney movie. Some crew members of the Pegasus also lovingly referred to her as Peggy. The ship was under the command of Admiral Helena Kane at the time of the Cylon attack on the 12 colonies, and was thought to have been destroyed in that initial attack.
Just prior to the attack the Pegasus was docked at the Scorpion Fleet shipyards, where it was due for a 3-month overhaul. Many of the ship's systems were offline due to this, including the command navigation program that the Cylons used to disable the colonial defences during their genocide. It's not just an attack as in the script, their genocide.
The genocidal attack. There you go.
Yes. The opening attack on the shipyards destroyed 5 ships, including 2 full Battlestars. Pegasus lost over 700 crew members, but did survive the attack by performing a blind FGL jump.
It is worth noting that these Battlestars were incredibly tough. In the movie Razor, the Pegasus CO reports, looks like nuclear detonations, multiple hits, meaning this class of Battlestar can take multiple nuclear warhead strikes and still continue to be operationally effective. Yes, damaged, but she still had her drive pods intact, FTL, and such. Although these strikes did cause massive damage, the ship could still take them and keep going. Take a licking and keep on ticking, as they say. So, in a franchise without shielding, that is some seriously impressive armor we are talking about. And to quote from another sci-fi franchise, it's impressive. Most impressive. What are you guys doing? Doing stuff about my franchise?
Vader.
No.
Later.
Oh.
Vader. Later.
Later, Vader. Later, Vader. Oh.
I would also like to throw in now that the Pegasus, the Mercury class, was the biggest and baddest ship in the colonial fleet. A more common ship in the fleet was the Valkyrie class Battlestar, and also seen at the Scorpion shipyards, the Berserk class. When we look at all these contemporary ships, we can see the Pegasus is far, far larger than anything else.
She's even larger than the original Cylon War Defender class seen at the bottom there, which was a ship that appeared in the background of the fleet. So who knew she was this big?
And we'll cover the Defender at a later date, because it's a pretty interesting design. Having the real model is actually pretty detailed for just a background ship. Love it. But even so, we see a fleet of Valkyries defending Caprica at the fall of the colonies. They must be pretty common and pretty special to be, defending their home world, as it were. And the Mercury class is less so. I think she really is one of the beasts of the fleet, although just like the original Jupiter class Battlestars, there being only 12, one for each colony, this may have been how they built the new Mercury class starships, hence why we don't see them very often, or ever.
And that makes perfect sense, actually. Before meeting up with the Galactica, the Pegasus had been performing repeated hit-and-run raids on Cylon forces, and even trailed a huge Cylon fleet, which was jumping between systems with natural resources. It was during one of these jumps that the Pegasus discovered the escaping fleet of colonial ships protected by Galactica. The Galactica and the Pegasus worked side by side for quite a while before the Pegasus was ultimately destroyed. Now, we're not going to go into any specifics here, as they have very little to do with the actual ship itself, and they do contain some massive spoilers. So,
but we will say the Pegasus was finally destroyed in action after drawing fire from several base stars, allowing the Galactica to escape. The Pegasus became heavily damaged at this confrontation and could not make the FTL jump, so it locked onto a suicide course with weapons systems firing automatically. The crew evacuated in several Raptors just before the Pegasus rammed into a Cylon base star, destroying it. The resulting explosion caused the Pegasus to fragment, sending the starboard hangar pod careening into and destroying yet another Cylon base star.
2 for the price of 1 there, it seems.
Still not worth it.
Well,
Still not worth it.
Somewhat of a different scenario plays out in the 1978 Battlestar Galactica. The Pegasus there had spent the early part of its life patrolling the edges of colonial space under Commander Kane, the renowned and later legendary colonial warrior. The Pegasus later took part in the Battle of Joel Trata, during the course of which it was severely damaged. After the battle, she was found by Battlestar Athena and towed back to Caprica for repair and refitting.
A few years later, however, the entirety of the Fifth Fleet, save for the Pegasus, was lost during the Battle of Molokai. The Pegasus managed to slip away during the battle and make her way into deep space. Sometime after the destruction of the 12 colonies, the Pegasus was discovered by a recon patrol consisting of Starbuck and Apollo, originally played by Dirk Benedict and the late Richard Hatch from Galactica.
The 2 Battlestars met and took part in a fierce battle against Cylon forces. Towards the end of the battle, the badly damaged Pegasus positioned herself between 2 base stars and launched nuclear missiles from its port and starboard missile bays, and at point-blank range destroyed both base stars. After the dust had settled, so to speak, there was no trace of Pegasus, and its actual fate remains unknown. That's it, guys. Tune in for the next part, which is next week.
Next week? So I have to wait a whole week for next part? Oh.
You do indeed.
But that's...
But we'll see you then.
Bye. See you. Bye.